interesting chapter for you. And the name of the chapter is Forest Society and Colonialism's History. Diversity in forests has been disappearing very quickly during the period of industrialization between 700 and 1995. 13.9 million square kilometers of forest was cleared for industrial uses, cultivation, pasture and fuel wood. This turns out to be 9.3% of the total area of the world. Disappearance of forests is called deforestation. The process of deforestation began many centuries ago, but became more systematic and extensive during the colonial period. About 1/6 of India's landmass was under the cultivation in 600. At present, almost half of the landmass in India has come under cultivation. Next topic is effect of colonial rule on forest cover. Colonialists all over the world thought that uncultivated land should be taken over so that could be used for more commercial purposes. The production of commercial crops like jute, sugar, wheat and cotton increased during this period. This happens because of increasing demand from a growing population in Europe. Food grain was required to feed the growing population and raw materials were needed for the growing industries. The cultivated areas increased by 6.7 million hectares between 1880 and 1920 in India. The oak forests were disappearing in England by the early 20th century. This created scarcity for the shipbuilding industry in Britain. Ships were quite important for military power of the British. They found good sources of wood for shipbuilding in the Indian forest. This began cutting of trees on a large scale in the Indian forest. The spread of railways from the 1850s created new demand for timber. Timber was required for making sleepers for the railway line. Each mile of railway track needed 1,760 to 2,000 sleepers. About 25,500 kilometers of track had been laid by 1890. It is obvious that a large number of trees were felled to meet this demand. Plantations. The British also introduced large plantations for growing tea, coffee and rubber. European planters were given vast areas to land at cheap rates so that they could develop plantations. The area was cleared of forests to make a way for tea or coffee. To properly control and manage the forest resources in India, the British appointed a German expert, Dietrich Brandis, as the first inspector governor of forests in India. Brandis introduced a new system and began to train people in conservation of forest resources. The Indian Forest Service was set up in 1864 and the Indian Forest Act was introduced in 1865. Grazing, felling of trees and any use of forest produce was made illegal and punishable offence. In the name of scientific forestry, they replaced natural vegetation with a single type of trees like sal or eucalyptus. The modern conservationists tell this system as monoculture and argue that it is not good for the environment. The Indian Forest Act was amended twice, once in 1878 and then in 1927. The 1878 Act divided forest into three categories: reserved, protected and village forest. They used to take food, medicines, firewood and many other raw material from the forest. Move on to the next topic: new trades, new employments and new services. The new trade was mainly controlled by the British people with some participation of Indian merchants. For the forest dwellers, no significant opportunities emerged. Many people from Jharkhand, Orissa and Chhattisgarh were forced to work in tea gardens of Assam and West Bengal. But the working condition in the tea garden was very bad. People were given low wages and there was no permission to come back to their home villages in between. Many nomadic tribes who had earlier been engaged in trade of forest produce continued to do so. The people of BASTAR. BASTAR is located in the southernmost part of Chhattisgarh and borders Andhra Pradesh, Orissa and Maharashtra. Many tribal communities like Maria and Muria Gons, Druvas, Bhatras and Halbas live in this area. They speak different languages but share common customs and beliefs. These tribal people had always been dependent on forest and had developed the practice of keeping the forest in the high revenue. Forest transformation in Java. Java is in Indonesia and it is used to be a Dutch colony. This was the place where the new forest management policy was initiated by the colonial rulers. The woodcutters of Java. The Kalangas of Java were a community of skilled forest cutters and shifting cultivators. Their expertise was valuable for the kings for building palaces. Their importance can be gauged from the fact that when the Mataran kingdom of Java split in 1755, the 6,000 Kalan families were equally divided between the two kingdoms. When the Dutch began to gain control over the forest in the 18th century, they also tried to take the Kalangas under their control. They resisted by attacking the Dutch fort in 1770, but the rebellion was suppressed. SAMIN'S challenge. Around 1890s, Surondeko Samin of Randall Blanton village, a teak forest village, began questioning state ownership of the forest. He began to convince. He spoke about the wrong policies of the colonial rulers. Many families were joined that rebellion. People protested by lying down on their land when the Dutch came to survey it. Many others refused to pay taxes or fines or do work. The last topic of this chapter is war and deforestation. The two world wars had major impacts on forest. More trees were cut to meet the wartime needs of Britain. In Java, the Dutch followed scorched earth policy just before the Japanese occupation of the region. They destroyed sawmills and burnt huge piles of giant tea logs. The Japanese continued the exploitation of forest. They forced forest villages to cut down forest. Many villages, it was an opportunity to expand cultivated area. Okay friends, I hope all of you understood this chapter very clearly. I will come back with another important chapter. Till then, goodbye.